All right, now we're going to work with changing between what's referred to as exponential form and radical form. This would be considered your exponential form. These two are both considered radical form. Anytime that your exponent is a fraction, then it can be changed into one of these two forms, which is the radical form. So here's what you've got to remember. When you have your fraction here as your exponent, the denominator of that fraction is going to tell you the root, so like whether it's a square root or a cube root. The top number is going to be used as the exponent. Now, the a, that's considered the base here, that's what you put here, but again, this is what you would raise the power to, which comes from the numerator of your fraction. Now, these two forms are both equivalent. They're both radical forms. The difference is the location as to where you put your exponent. In just changing from one form to the other, we'll use this most of the time. But when it comes to doing some simplifying a little bit, we'll actually use this form. So the numerator can be put underneath your radical, used as your exponent, or you can raise the whole radical to that power. But either way, it's being used as an exponent. All right, so the first thing that we're going to look at is going to be changing to radical form. So like here we're starting out with it in exponential form, and we're going to change it over to radical form. Okay, so first of all, just go ahead and write your radical symbol. Your base here is x, so that goes underneath. Okay, so what we had just learned up here is the bottom number of this fraction, your denominator, is going to tell you your root, so that would be used as your index. The top number is an exponent. Of course, again, there's two ways that you can write it. I'm going to write it this way, so that means that I would put my 3 under there. So these would be equivalent forms. This one's exponential, this one's radical. Okay, the next one. Okay, and changing this one over, again, go ahead and put your radical sign. Your base is an x. Okay, your bottom number, again, is your root. So that tells me that I'm going to have a cube root. The -1 is going to be my exponent. Okay, now I know earlier the problems that we finished right before this, we always rewrote it if we have a negative exponent. On this one, we're just changing from one form to the next, so typically they just leave the negative exponent in that situation. All right, the last one here, we have 2.4. What you would have to do anytime that you're given a decimal, and you can use your calculator to do this. If you remember, you can just type it in. Let me put my calculator up here a second. I can put in 2.4, go to math and change it to fraction. So that would be the same thing as 12 over 5. So we're going to rewrite it as x to the 12/5. Now change it over to radical form. So again, your base is x, your bottom number tells you your root, your top number is your exponent. Okay. Now, using the same rule, but actually just going in reverse order, let's look at these problems. So this time we're going to start out with it in radical form and go to exponential form. Same rule, like I said, just reverse order. Okay, so the first one, okay, I have a c underneath, so that's going to be used as my base. I've just got to figure out what my exponent needs to be. The exponent here is used as your numerator, and your index or your root is used as your denominator. So that would be c to the 3/4. Okay, next one. Now this time they've put the exponent outside, which we talked about a while ago. It can go in two different places. So whether it's underneath like here or the whole thing to the power, then that's going to be used as your numerator. So we would have c to the 5 divided by. Now, your denominator has to be your root, which there's not a number here. When there's not a number here, it's understood to be a 2 because you read that as square root. So your answer would be c to the 5/2. Okay, next one. Now, this time my base is the 2 and the x both because all of that's to the 5th power. So I would have 2x And then I've got to raise this to a power, which would be 5 for your numerator, 3 for your denominator. But you have got to keep that in parentheses. If you don't, the 5/3 is only on the x, but you also have to include the 2 on that. All right, last one here. Now, the fact that you don't have parentheses on this one like you did up here, you have to make sure you interpret this a little bit differently. The 7 is not the exponent of the whole thing. The 7 is the exponent of just the x. So what you have is all of this is understood to be to the first power. So when you change this over, you're going to have 5x to the 7th. Okay, then your exponent's an understood 1. And again, your root, you don't have a number here, so that's an understood 2. So that would be your answer on that one.